I had a Rolex. I drove a BMW. I knew famous people. I kind of had access to, this life that others would find alluring, but it was really the pigsty.
Yeah.
I was morally bankrupt. I was spiritually bankrupt. I was emotionally bankrupt. And I was pushing that off for so long until I couldn't push it off. And then I had to come face to face with that reality.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to come home. I missed so many of those things that I had rejected growing up. And that allowed me to, I guess, maybe opt back into faith in a different way, but not totally different. I probably took 80% of it.
Yeah. Do you feel like there was like a moment, like when the numbness set in, you're like, this is like, I'm 180 right here. My life is different. Or was this over a period of time?
It took a couple months.
Where you're like, I really got to change something. And
yeah, it took a couple months. And there was this night once where, so at that moment, I started praying again. Okay. And I started visiting churches. And at the time, the churches in New York City, they met in fluorescent lit, basements of public schools. The two PV speakers stuck on the pole. The one, it just sounded terrible. A lot of khakis. I wore all black, 100% of the time. So it felt a little dissonant. Yeah. But I was trying, and I remember trying to go back to some of the teaching that I remember. I remember listening to Tim Keller and reading C.S. Lewis again. I tried to find my way back, but the environment didn't change. So I was still promoting nightclubs for a living. I'm still spraying bottles of champagne from the DJ booth, over the 100 people that are kind of underneath the DJ booth. So it was an interesting time of this push-pull where I wasn't really successful at either thing. I wasn't successful at coming back to faith, but I also wasn't very successful at being a degenerate anymore because the fun was taken out of it. Yeah. So I was trying to smoke less and drink less, and nothing was really working. It was like a limbo.
Yeah. All right. So at this point, did your parents, when you started coming back, were they cheering you on? Were they open arms? Were they reluctant to accept the fact that you might be serious about it? Where were their...
My poor parents. I mean, for a decade, they watched their only son just...
Because that's got to have been horrible for them.
It was terrible for them.
Yeah.
And they're deep people with faith, so they were praying. I mean, they had multiple prayer chains going, praying the prodigal home. Yeah. I used to joke that, and I met some of them, little old ladies were locked up in prayer closets for Scott Harrison, wearing holes in the carpet with their knees, just trying to pray Chuck and Jones' son home. So, I joke about that now, but I mean, I think that, I believe that had a decade of prayers had played a part, for sure, in me coming home. So, I struggled for a little bit. Then there was this one event where I fired somebody from a job at a nightclub for stealing. They wound up coming after me the next night with a threat, like a death threat. And in the nightclub business, you get your life threatened all the time because you're constantly turning people away from the clubs, which embarrasses them. But this felt a little edgier than, the kind of run-of-the-mill, I'm going to
just a normal death. Yeah, normal
the
death
normal
threat.
threats. Yeah. And I bailed. I remember renting this cobalt blue Ford Mustang from Newark Airport for a month, grabbing a Bible, grabbing a bottle of Dewar's, grabbing a carton of Marlboro Reds. So I smoked 2 packs a day for 10 years and just heading north. Like if you'd asked me, I was just going north. I had no idea. And I'm listening to sermons and I'm reading the Bible and I'm drinking the Dewar's at night and I'm smoking. And God really started to work in my heart and in my life. And I remember coming across the story of Lot. And in no way was I a righteous man, but like Lot was stuck in this kind of really impossibly debauched environment as described in the Bible. And God sent angels to just like rip him out of there, and snatch him and say, we got to go right now. I think I needed that. We got to go right now. You got to get out of clubs right now because this will be the death of you. Or you're just going to fail in this terrible middle land, for such a long time. You're going to fail and flail. So I think that threat was really the impetus. It took me north, and then I just started having this conversation with God, that was cigarette and doers fueled. I can't believe I drank such bad scotch. I mean, it's like, come on.
Yes, you need to get some Macallan or something.
But
Was that not
exactly,
an option?
right?
Come on.
Like a 25.
Yeah, Macallan 25. Yeah.
I just remember having this conversation with God, and I got the idea to tithe one of the 10 years that I had selfishly wasted and see if I could be useful to God and to others. And this led me to an internet dial-up cafe. I remember there were Dell and Hewlett-Packard, gray computers, kind of stacked up those towers, on Moosehead Lake in Maine, because I got as far as Maine with my little rental Ford Mustang. And I started applying from this internet cafe to these famous charities or humanitarian organizations I had tangentially heard of over the years, not had given to, not had volunteered, but, I've heard of Save the Children.
Yeah.
I've heard of Oxfam, World Vision, Sam's Purse, the Red Cross. And I'm sitting there looking for opportunities and putting in these applications. And, maybe no surprise to anybody listening, I'm denied by all these organizations because Doctors Without Borders is looking for doctors, not club promoters. So no one had any idea, what to do with a promoter. I mean, it's a very niche skill.
Yeah.
And as the rejection letters came in over the next few weeks, I just remember being so deflated. Here I thought this was a good idea. I'm ready, and no one will take me. And I was very fortunate that this one organization who initially had denied my application was about to start their humanitarian mission without this role filled. So they had to go back to the rejection letters.
Fine.
And they found my resume and they called me and they said, we're not going to just agree to take you on, but we will meet you. We'll give you a chance to interview. And it was a big hospital ship, a group called Mercy Ships, that operated this 522-foot converted cruise liner turned hospital ship. And the ship was in Germany. And I went to go meet them in Germany, Bremerhaven, Germany, and convince them that I really did want to serve God. I really did want to serve a mission greater than myself. And I would not throw any wild parties on the hospital ship and corrupt any of the young nurses. So I convinced them that my heart had changed. And they took me on, and this is kind of a fun detail. They said, well, we're going to the poorest country in the world for the mission, a place called Liberia in West Africa. I'd never even heard of Liberia. I mean, I couldn't have found it on a map. And I had to pay them $500 a month.
You have to pay to be on the
pay to be on the ship.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ways they raise money is they get all of the volunteers to also come up with $500 a month in cash for our own room and board and food. And so in some ways, it really felt like the perfect opposite of my life. And I knew at that time that a pivot was not in order. I mean, I really needed to change everything.
Yeah.
And this was the opportunity. So it happened very quickly. A couple weeks later, I am walking up this gangway of a massive hospital ship with 350 volunteer crew to sail away to a continent I've never set foot on and sail away to a new life.
And what do they do on Mercy ships?
It's bringing the best doctors and surgeons in the world to people who can't afford medical interventions, and also operating in countries where there are no surgical theaters that would meet standards. So they bring people on this massive hospital ship and then set them loose, with completely transformed lives.
All right. So tell me about Dr. Gary and that kind of his impact on your life.
Well, I should say that the night before I joined the mission, I go out with a bang.
Last
I think
hurrah.
I smoked 60 cigarettes. Now, as legend has it, apparently I turned up reeking of alcohol and cigarettes as I surrendered my passport. But I really knew that I would have to leave that all on land. And there was something so prophetic or symbolic about walking up the gangway. The gangway gets pulled up and then sailing away. And being able to change everything in that moment. I kind of wanted to leave all the vice on land. Yeah. So I never had another cigarette again, never gambled again, never touched Coke or any of that stuff again, never looked at a pornographic image again. I mean, I wrote a list of like never touch. I drink a little bit. I do have a weakness for craft IPAs and a little bit of wine, but it was such an extreme cold turkey moment. And not to over spiritualize it, but I almost felt like I was given this new set of clothes. If you go back to the pig pen analogy, like I have brand new white clothes on, and I didn't want to get the clothes dirty.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could, and there'd be grace for that. Like I could slip, and I'm sure if I smoked or if I fell back in any of these habits, I could throw it in the washer, I could bleach it. But I was just like, I have new clothes.
Yeah.
I want to try not being dirty.
Yeah.
And see where that takes me.